Everybody, welcome to another weekly Jim. I'm Jim Benson from Modus Institute and the Collaboration Equation, and today I'm going to be talking about a new course that we have at Modus Institute that's coming up that is all about limiting WIP. And in Kanban, we talk about limiting WIP like with a number, so you only have a certain number of things in flight so that you can focus on them and finish. In Scrum, you try and limit your WIP by choosing only a certain number of story points or user stories for any given point in time. In Lean, you try and limit your WIP by making sure that you have a maximum amount of throughput with a minimum amount of cycle time, and that doesn't reach a point where the speed at which you're working is creating all sorts of errors. Everything is trying to get us to limit our work in progress, and that's great. But the problem with this is that limiting WIP itself is very difficult because we treat it like it is an operational imperative. I'm going to use this tool and then magically I will start to do less stuff. And then as you're working, people are coming up going, "Are you through yet? Are you through yet? Can you do this? Hey, look at this. I've got this. Can you take a peek at this? Hey, can I get your decision on this? Can you give your input on this? Can you take a look at this? Where is this?" And they're are on your case all the time. And so that is the real thing about WIP, is that there's this invisible workload that we're carrying that we don't realize we're carrying. So on our personal Kanban or on our Kanbans, we can have the tasks up there, but it doesn't mean that this thing isn't going to be ringing all the time. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to have people bothering you on Slack or other IM messengers or whatever. So there's this constant cognitive tax that we're paying because we're constantly context switching. We're constantly trying to do all of these other things that aren't the task at hand. And so we're like, well, I just need time to focus. I need time to be alone. Well, it doesn't work that way either, because you go to work to be in a company. And when you're in a company, you work in the company of others. So you need to talk to people and they need to talk to you. And you need to collaborate and you need to ask questions. And those questions don't come on a schedule. They don't care whether you have your Pomodoro time right now or not. Those questions come when they come, and then they interrupt people. And you add to that there's this constant structural set of pain that is coming from a variety of sources. And that pain is saying to you constantly, fill out this form, pay attention to these people, stop doing what you're doing there and work on something else. Wait, there's this emergency, come deal with this emergency. So we've got the cognitive task of us moving back and forth. We have the operational cost of this, which is that as these things are happening, we're becoming more and more frustrated because we're not getting our work done. That's adding to a more and more toxic work environment, which then creates its own new problems. So like we have like a work in progress that we're working on, and we're working on 5 different projects, and all of those project managers are constantly coming to us saying, "Are you done yet? Are you done yet?" Then those project managers are bringing us into meetings where we're saying, "Oh my God, I don't have enough time on your project or your project." And they're like, "Well, you need to be 10% on project A and 7% on project B and 33% on project C." And those numbers will never work out because we never actually know where the complexity in our work will lie. And then this makes us freak out, and then we get sick, and then we miss days of work, and then we quit. So all of that is not good. So in this class, what we're trying to do is we're going to take all of these different kinds of work in progress, and we're going to look at them, and we're going to say, okay, we've got all of this different stuff. How do we visualize this work like we were trying to in Kanban? How do we visualize this work for real? How do we visualize the political dimension of our work? How do we visualize the interpersonal dimension of our work? How do we visualize the social, the structural definitions of our work? So we have things like our self-inflicted WIP, which is the work in progress that we take on by ourselves, by volunteering too much, by saying, "Oh, that looks interesting," or "That looks interesting, I'm going to work on this," or by just being the person that does that thing. Like, I'm the person that knows everything about this part of the code, or I'm the person that knows this tax law, or I'm the person that knows this. So then when there's a bunch of work around that, you end up getting it all, and then you have a rush So you can't actually upskill anybody else. You're just like, just leave me alone and I'll just muscle through it because it'll go away. It's like, yeah, it'll go away, but it'll come back. So that's the stuff that we work on. That's the WIP that we create for ourselves. You know, we're our worst bottleneck, as the slide says there. And within there, there's a bunch of different kinds of WIP that we're going to talk about. There's lots and lots of them. So here is another family. So this is the communication deficient WIP, and this is where we have extra work in progress because we get misinformation from people, or we get a lack of information, or we have misunderstandings. And these can be structural, like, you know, I have Teams and I have Google Docs and I have Dropbox and I don't know where the file is. There can be misinformation, like I heard that we were going to do this. I started to act on that information, but that information wasn't fully correct. It was from a game of telephone. And then there's just misunderstandings where, like, the customer comes and asks you to build a thing. You build that thing, you give that thing to the customer, and the customer does not recognize what you built. All of those things create WIP. And they create ambient WIP and hidden WIP and induced WIP and whack-a-mole WIP and information family WIP. And then in these WIPs, you see they've even got the individual types of WIP: placeholder tasks, recursive work, proxy work. That the reason that limiting WIP is hard is because it's really hard. But we can understand the system in which it operates and we can deal with it. So we come up to the third major kind. There are four major kinds, four divisions of WIP that we've identified. So the third one here is structural and systemic. So this is from bad organizational design or process or culture. I know you've never seen any of that, but here you have a siloing, you have institutional grief, ennui, compliance, legacy, institutionalized schizophrenia, if you want to go that far. There's individual WIPs in each of these that are so painful and so hard to plan for, but easy to anticipate. And that's a crazy thing, right? Is that we have self-inflicted, we have leadership-induced, we have communication deficient, we have structural and semantic WIP. All of these things, all of these different types of WIP are combining to undermine the good work that we're doing with our Kanbans or in Scrum or what have you. We need to understand the playing field that our work is coming to us on so that we can deal with it effectively. And that is what we deal with in this class. So this is both the weekly gym of just kind of an informational thing of talking about these different kinds of WIP, but it's also directly talking about this class because it's impossible to do this in a 5-minute video. This is so deep, it's so interesting, but we can fix it. So come check out at modusinstitute.com the WIP Whisperer class, and we'll solve these things together.